You're being investigated for financial fraud. The FBI is on their way. The words didn't come as a warning. They came as a public execution. Loud, deliberate, echoing across the marble lobby of Southport Federal Bank like a loaded gavel. People stopped mid-step. Phones paused in mid-air. Heads turned not toward the man who said it, but toward the woman he accused. She didn't flinch. Marcus Lowell, 52, branch manager, didn't whisper. He projected, like he wanted the whole floor to hear. And they did. The woman he pointed at? Black, mid-30s, simple cream blouse, navy trousers, no jewelry, no entourage, just one laptop bag and a phone she hadn't touched since entering. That was her crime. That and trying to authorize a $3.5 million transfer from her own business account. Two tellers looked at each other nervously. A security guard shifted by the vault doors. Somewhere near the premium accounts desk, a junior banker muttered, "Not again." But Marcus didn't care. He leaned in, voice sharper now. "We're flagging the account, locking all outbound transfers. Until the bureau gets here, she is not to leave the premises." Then he turned toward the nearby security guard and barked, "Stand by the doors. She may attempt to flee." She still hadn't said a word. But her silence? It wasn't submission. It was strategy. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to her. People started whispering. One woman gasped, "FBI? For what?" Another man muttered, "Damn, she must have done something big." The woman in question, she turned slightly. Not to explain herself, not to plead, but to reposition her laptop case on the floor beside her. Everything about her was measured, intentional. The kind of composure that doesn't come from innocence, it comes from power disguised as patience. Marcus wasn't done. "She presented ID that doesn't match our internal profile," he said, waving a black executive card. "No job title listed, no corporate link. Her story doesn't add up." It was a lie, but spoken loud enough, a lie becomes atmosphere. The air in the bank shifted, no longer neutral, now charged with suspicion. A young boy clutched his mother's hand tighter. An elderly man stepped back, as if scandal was contagious. Still, she didn't move. Her gaze didn't leave Marcus. And Marcus, mistaking stillness for fear, smiled. "I've seen this before," he said louder, now addressing the room. "Big claims, big money, no credentials. It's always the same. But this time, it wasn't. Because this time, the woman he targeted wasn't a scammer. She wasn't a stranger. She wasn't small. She was the CEO of a fintech group that had processed more transactions last quarter than this entire branch. And the only reason she was here today was to test their internal audit compliance before approving their partnership license. But Marcus didn't know that. Not yet. And before this day was over, he would lose his job not because she yelled, not because she posted, but because she didn't. And that silence? It was about to become the most dangerous sound in that entire building. She walked in like any other client. New guards, new assistant, new noise. A simple white blouse, navy trousers, comfortable black flats, hair pulled back into a low knot. No designer logos, no diamond studs, just a soft leather laptop case in one hand and a calm that unsettled the impatient. That calm, it wasn't weakness, it was history. Her name was Alana Miles, 37, founder and CEO of Delphia Group, a fintech conglomerate handling regulatory compliance and fund automation for over 600 mid-sized banks across the country, including this one. But she didn't tell them that. Not yet, because today wasn't about power. It was about protocol, and Marcus Lowell had just failed the first test. Alana had arrived at Southport Federal Bank precisely at 10:04 a.m., scheduled by her own calendar block as unauthorized live systems check. Her goal? Simulate a high-value transfer with no prior notice. Gauge reaction. Measure bias. Because if this bank wanted a 5-year integration contract with Delphia Group, they had to meet one non-negotiable standard. Equal treatment. Unbiased validation. Zero profiling. This morning was a pop quiz, and they weren't just failing, they were exposing their entire culture. At the front desk, the teller had smiled hesitantly when Alana requested a transaction over $3 million, then hesitated again when she scanned Alana's credentials. It wasn't the amount. It wasn't the policy. It was the appearance. No suit. No flashy ID badge. No representative. Just a woman, black, soft-spoken, unbothered, making a bold financial move. That was enough to trigger a chain of assumptions. Within minutes, the teller had whispered to the back office, and Marcus had emerged like a warden summoned from the shadows of systemic fear. Now he stood 10 feet away, chest puffed, tone raised, casting a net of suspicion across the room. Alana hadn't interrupted him. She let him speak. Because sometimes, the fastest way to expose a culture is to let it talk. At the far end of the lobby, a junior associate named Jalen, 24, observant, quiet, glanced at his screen again. He saw the digital verification tied to Alana's transfer. He saw the name. He saw the embedded compliance stamp. Delphia Protocol, CEO, override. And yet, he said nothing. Not because he didn't know, but because he knew saying something would cost him more than silence. Jalen looked down at his keyboard. His hands hovered, then stopped. Across the room, Alana gently placed her laptop case on the bench beside her. She looked around the lobby. She saw a mother with her child. She saw a middle-aged man typing furiously on his phone. She saw 2 women filming with quiet disbelief. She didn't look embarrassed. She didn't look afraid. She looked aware, because this wasn't new. At 19, a professor asked her if she really wrote the code she submitted for her senior project. At 23, a recruiter told her she had a non-traditional leadership presence. At 31, a venture firm offered her half the equity they'd offered a younger, less experienced founder. And now, at 37, she was being treated like a criminal inside a bank her company had shortlisted for acquisition. Alana exhaled slowly. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was low but firm. "Before the FBI arrives," she said, "I recommend you pull the last 3 internal audit memos you submitted to Delphia Systems." Marcus blinked. "What did you just say?" Alana met his gaze. "Also, you might want to recheck the compliance tag on this account. Section 9, B, Code 4485. It supersedes standard fraud protocol." Marcus scoffed, waving her off. "Ma'am, whatever fake documents you printed online don't mean anything here." But his voice cracked slightly, because in the corner of his mind, a flicker of doubt had just lit up. Behind the scenes, a silent phone vibrated. In an office 2 blocks away, Carla Evans, Delphia's general counsel, glanced at her screen. One word. Activated. She stood up and opened a private channel. Back in the lobby, Alana turned slightly. Not to flee, not to argue, just to sit. And as she did, her stillness filled the room again. Not just with poise, but with warning. Because while everyone else saw a woman out of place, out of line, they didn't see what was already in motion. "This is a federal security breach. I want her detained." Marcus's voice hit the air like a shot. Not just loud, strategic. He knew the weight of the word federal. He used it like a sword. A nearby teller dropped her pen. Another leaned over and whispered, "Is this real?" But no one stepped forward, because fear, even when misdirected, still commands silence. Alana sat still. No resistance, no retreat. Her hands folded gently over her lap, but the silence was more deafening than any outburst. And Marcus, he couldn't handle it. "Security," he barked, pointing. "By policy, she's trespassing under false pretenses. Remove her until verification is complete." A guard in a navy blazer started toward her, hesitant, but moving. Then came a voice, young, sharp, from behind the counter. "Sir, wait." It was Jalen. He stood halfway out of his cubicle, screen still glowing behind him. Marcus turned, jaw tight. "What?" Jalen swallowed. I saw the tag," he said. "The compliance override. Section 9, B. She's in the system. It's real." The room paused. Marcus didn't. "You don't get to speak about protocol unless I ask you to." Jalen's voice rose slightly. "She's not lying. Her credentials match. Her authorization code is live." Alana turned her head just a fraction and looked at him. That look wasn't gratitude. It wasn't surprise. It was recognition. A young man weighing risk versus justice, and choosing truth. But before the weight could settle, another voice cut in. Mocking, louder. "Oh please, you believe that crap?" It was Tiffany, senior banker, mid-42nd, pearl earrings, confidence that dripped with condescension. She walked up with a clipboard clutched to her chest like armor. I've seen that card before. These high-gloss fake executive credentials. Print on demand. I've had 3 this year. She turned toward Alana. You people come in with your business cards and buzzwords and think we won't see through it. You people. 2 words that broke the air. A client at the coffee bar lowered his espresso cup. Someone whispered, "Did she just say that?" Alana blinked slowly, then said, cool and measured, "Do you speak to all your clients this way, or only the ones you assume don't belong?" Tiffany didn't flinch. "You're not a client. You're a red flag wrapped in a press release." Another banker stepped forward, Reed. Young, unsure, trying to de-escalate. "Maybe we just wait for verification." Marcus waved him off. "I already called the FBI. It's out of our hands now." He turned back to Alana. "You brought this on yourself." That's when she reached into her laptop case. Not fast, not threatening, but intentional. The guard tensed. Tiffany stepped back. Alana slowly pulled out a slim black tablet, pressed the power button, held it flat. "This device," she said calmly, "is registered to Delphia Group's executive network. Its security chip is time-stamped and geo-verified. If you scan it, the authentication will show the override order initiated at 10:04 a.m. She offered it forward. No one moved. In the back, Jalen whispered, "It'll confirm everything." But Marcus's pride was already louder than protocol. He slapped the tablet from her hand. It hit the floor with a soft thud, but the sound echoed like a gunshot. Alana didn't move, but the energy shifted. Someone gasped. A phone beeped. Someone had started filming. The guard paused mid-step. Even Tiffany looked uneasy. "You just tampered with registered executive hardware," Alana said, voice like glass. "Congratulations. That's a federal offense, and the cameras saw it." Marcus's hand hovered midair. He didn't know whether to defend, deflect, or deny. So he did what weak men always do when truth corners them. He doubled down. "You want threats?" he said. "You think I'm scared of your little tablet? Let the FBI deal with you." Then he pointed again. "Escort her out now." The guard took one step, and then stopped, because at that exact moment, every screen in the bank teller terminals, back office displays, client monitors flashed blue. A black logo pulsat. Delphia Secure Network. Emergency flag triggered. Compliance override. Level Sigma. Stand by for internal audit lockdown. Marcus turned pale. "What the hell is that?" Jalen whispered. She triggered the Sigma protocol. Alana stood up, slow, steady, and finally spoke to the room. "You want to call the FBI?" She stepped forward. "Good. They're walking in now." The door hissed open. 2 men in dark suits entered, crisp ties, mirrored badges, eyes scanning like searchlights. Federal Bureau of Investigation. The room shifted in an instant. Chairs scraped. Breath caught. Phone screens dipped just slightly lower. But not hers. Alana stood as if she had been waiting for them the entire morning. One agent, older, shaved head, compact, walked toward Marcus with confident steps. "Special Agent Cortez," he said, flashing credentials. "We received a fraud escalation from this branch. You're the reporting manager?" Marcus puffed up, voice clipped. "That's right. Subject is here. African-American female, mid-30s, attempting high-value transfer with falsified documents and likely stolen identity, refused to comply with security." He gestured toward Alana like a man presenting evidence, not a person. But Cortez didn't look at her. He looked at Marcus. "Who verified the report?" he asked. Marcus blinked. "What?" "Who validated the identity discrepancy? Your back office, external systems. Did you attempt in-branch confirmation through your Delphia integration?" Marcus stammered. I flagged it based on behavior and credentials. She couldn't provide institutional proof. Her documents didn't match our protocols." Cortez raised an eyebrow. "Which documents?" Marcus motioned toward the floor where Alana's tablet still lay. Screen cracked, logo still faintly glowing. She showed that. Some kind of fake device. Now Cortez turned. Finally looked at her. And his body shifted. Not aggressive but alert. A flicker of calculation passed his face. "Ma'am, name and affiliation?" Alana didn't raise her voice. "Alana Miles, CEO of Delphia Group. The system you just referenced? I built it." No one moved. No one breathed. Agent Cortez reached into his inner coat pocket, pulled out a small field scanner, and bent to lift the tablet gently. He held the device under the reader. Beep. Then the screen on his handheld console glowed blue. Authorization confirmed. Executive access. Sigma override. Identity. Miles. Alana. Another beep. Active protocol in progress. Do not detain. The younger agent beside him, Agent Farley, looked up sharply. Sir, she's in our protected systems. This isn't a fraud case. She's corporate leadership. Marcus's lips parted. That can't be. Cortez didn't answer. He turned back to Alana. Do you need us to remain on site? She nodded once. Yes, you'll want to be here for what happens next. Marcus stumbled back, one hand gripping the desk. The blood drained from his face like spilled ink. Tiffany stepped away from him, arms crossed, suddenly mute. Alana bent slowly, retrieved her cracked tablet, and placed it back into her case. The zipper closed with a quiet zip, but it might as well have been thunder. Across the room, phones rose again. Clients filming, staff whispering. Jalen stood silently, frozen in place, both vindicated and horrified. He had seen Protocol Sigma mentioned in the company's quarterly bulletin. He thought it was a theoretical procedure, a myth used to scare low-level auditors. And now, he had watched it unfold. Live. With the subject standing 10 feet away, Alana turned back to Marcus. You called the FBI on a client without a single verification attempt. You initiated federal escalation over appearance, and you destroyed executive property in the process. Her voice never rose. But the worst part? She took one step forward. You were so sure you were right. You didn't blink. Agent Cortez looked over at Farley. Call it in. We're logging this as a corporate breach protocol abuse under Section 14. No detainment. Full audit pending. Farley nodded, voice already low into his radio. Marcus looked around the room like a drowning man scanning for a rope. No one moved. Even Tiffany avoided his eyes. Jalen sat down, hands trembling. The clients watched in reverent silence. And Alana? She stood perfectly still like marble. Not triumphant, not smug, just ready, because this wasn't over. This was the calm before the next storm. And justice, today, didn't come with a shout. It came with a screen, a badge, and a woman who never blinked. Are you recording this? The question came not from security, not from staff, but from a teenage girl seated near the espresso bar. Phone already up, red light glowing, eyes wide. Her mother, mid-42nd in a gray trench coat, leaned in close. Keep filming, don't stop. They weren't the only ones. Near the loan officer's desk, a young Latino man had already gone live. His caption read, Black CEO accused of fraud at her own bank. Watch this. And across the marble floor, more phones began to rise. Quietly, steadily, like heads lifting from a long slumber. Because what started as a whisper of doubt had now become a chorus of realization. Jalen, still seated behind the counter, stared at his own hands. Moments ago, those hands had hovered over the keyboard uncertain, hesitant. Now, they felt heavy, ashamed, like he'd watched a car crash in slow motion and waited too long to honk. He looked toward Alana. She hadn't even acknowledged him. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. This wasn't about him. It was about the silence he'd joined, the silence so many have joined, and the cost of that silence when justice stands alone. At the front, a man in a tailored suit, white, late 52nd, turned to Marcus. You said she was impersonating someone? His voice carried. Marcus didn't answer. The man looked at Agent Cortez. Was she? Cortez didn't flinch. No, sir. Her identity is confirmed. She is who she says she is. A murmur rolled through the lobby like a slow wave. A woman whispered, they really tried to arrest her. Another, I knew something felt wrong. Tiffany took a half step back, eyes darting, but nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Every corner of the room had become a mirror. And what it reflected wasn't just Marcus. It was the entire institution. Its assumptions, its reflexes, its hierarchy. And the face it showed wasn't flattering. A sudden voice from the back. She didn't even raise her voice. And y'all called the feds. It was a young black woman, mid-22nd, hair braided, hand gripping her phone. She didn't yell. She didn't resist. She sat. And you still saw danger. She looked straight at Marcus. You know how many of us carry ourselves just like her, calm, prepared, and still get treated like thieves? No one answered. The air was thick. Jalen stood slowly. I need to say something, he said, voice shaking. Everyone turned. I saw her name. I saw the tag. I saw the override. I didn't speak up fast enough. I let it happen. Because I was scared. He turned toward Alana now. But I see it clearly now. You weren't the problem. We were. A beat. Then another voice joined. She was calm. That scared them more than anything. An older black man near the brochure stand. They don't know what to do with quiet power. Another voice. I saw the manager slap her tablet. Another. They flagged her because she looked too normal. Another. This happens more than we talk about. And just like that, the room shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, but decisively. Phones kept recording. But now they weren't just watching. They were witnessing. And witnesses, they don't forget. At the center of it all, Alana stood still. Not defensive. Not angry. Just composed. Because she had seen this before. In college, when a librarian asked for extra verification on her student ID. At 26, when a hotel clerk claimed her corporate card couldn't be real. Even last year, when a security guard tailed her through the lobby of her own building, the building she owned. And every time, she'd held her ground. Not to prove herself, but to expose them. Back near the entrance, the teen girl whispered, "She's like a superhero." And her mother replied, "Number. She's what justice looks like when it's tired of explaining itself. She's manipulating all of you." Marcus' voice rung out sharp, disparate. Not confident anymore, but clinging. Clinging to authority that was unraveling by the second. He stepped forward, hand trembling just slightly, but his mouth moved with force. "You're being played," he said to the agents, to the clients, to the phones that hadn't stopped recording. "To all of you filming, you don't know what she's done. People like her. They know how to game the system. This isn't justice. It's theater." He didn't realize or didn't care that every word was being etched into digital permanence. Alana didn't speak. She didn't need to. Because power, when it's real, doesn't shout back. But Agent Cortez stepped in this time. "Mr. Lowell," he said, measured, "your statements are on record. If you continue to interfere with a federal verification process..." "She's a threat," Marcus interrupted. "You just don't see it." Across the room, a woman laughed not cruelly, but with a kind of disbelief that only pain can shape. "She's a threat? For sitting still?" she asked aloud. "You called the FBI because she didn't dress like you expected. That's what you're really afraid of." The room nodded, quiet but agreeing. Marcus turned to Tiffany, eyes pleading for backup, but she didn't meet his gaze. He looked to Reed. Nothing. Even Jalen, who'd been silent before, stepped further from the counter. "You accused her of impersonating an executive," Agent Farley said now, "without internal verification. You escalated to federal intervention. You destroyed protected equipment. That's 3 separate procedural violations." Marcus shook his head, mumbling, "This is insane." Farley continued, voice steady, "And your call to us included false claims. You told dispatch she was aggressive. That's a felony, a false federal report." The silence after that wasn't quiet. It pressed on the walls, like gravity shifting. Alana stepped forward now just one step and looked directly at Marcus. "I walked in here with full credentials, a verified system login, and federal clearance protocols embedded in my transfer," she said. "And you saw fraud." Another step. "I handed you my identity. You saw a con artist." Another. "You looked at my skin, my clothes, my stillness, and you decided none of it belonged in a place like this." She stopped, just inches from him now. "And now? You're not protecting policy. You're protecting pride." Someone at the back clapped once. Not a mockery, a punctuation. Then a second person. Then the sound spread low, unforced. Not a standing ovation. A reckoning. Marcus backed up, hitting the edge of the desk. His voice lowered, brittle. "This isn't how we do things." Cortez stepped in front of him, voice neutral but firm. "No, Mr. Lowell, it's exactly how you do things. That's the problem." He turned to Alana. "Do you wish to press charges?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned to the crowd, to the clients, to the junior staff, to the cameras still watching, and finally she said, I'm not here to ruin anyone's life. I'm here to make sure this never happens again. Then she looked back to Marcus. But that choice isn't yours anymore. She turned to Agent Farley. Lock the report. Send the footage to Delphia Legal. I'll decide next steps after compliance finishes their review. Farley nodded. Marcus looked like he wanted to say something, but the words collapsed before they formed. He'd run out of rope, and the drop had already started. At the corner, Jalen sat down again, eyes forward, but his hands weren't shaking now. He wasn't scared. He was watching someone do what he hadn't dared. And in that moment, it taught him something no memo ever had. That silence protects no one. But truth? Truth echoes. Marcus stared at the tablet in Agent Cortez's hand. His face, pale just seconds ago, flushed now with something uglier, shame and denial. The kind that doesn't repent, it attacks. And then he moved. Fast, desperate. He lunged across the counter, snatching the broken tablet from Cortez's grasp before anyone could stop him. A collective gasp swept the room. "Sir, step back," Cortez warned, hand moving instinctively to his belt. But Marcus didn't hear, didn't care, didn't see anymore. He raised the device high and slammed it hard twice against the granite countertop. Crack, crack. Glass spidered, plastic bent. The screen, already damaged, now split completely. Jalen stood up. "What are you doing?" Alana didn't flinch. She didn't run. She stepped forward, voice calm as always. "That device contains federal audit encryption." Marcus turned to her, breathing heavy, hair falling across his forehead. "I'm not letting you turn this place into your stage," he spat. "You and your protocols, your systems, your attitude." His words trailed off, because no one in the room was with him anymore. Tiffany stepped away. Reed reached for the phone behind the desk. Even the security guard who hadn't moved in 10 minutes put a hand on his radio. Agent Farley stepped in. "You just destroyed government, registered tech under live protocol," he said, voice cold. "That's obstruction, and if you take one more step, we'll cuff you right here." Marcus's hand trembled over the remains of the device. He blinked, and for the first time in the entire ordeal, he looked small, not because he was surrounded, but because he had finally run out of lies. Cortez approached slowly, calm but firm. "Put your hands where we can see them." Marcus did, but too late. The damage wasn't the tablet. It wasn't even legal. It was symbolic, because everyone watching, every client, every staffer, every person filming, had just seen a man with full authority resort to violence when truth no longer bent to him. The teenage girl by the espresso bar whispered, "He just snapped." Her mother didn't answer. She was already texting the footage to 3 different journalists. Jalen spoke now, louder than before. "You destroyed it because you knew it was real. That tablet scared you more than the FBI." Marcus turned, mouth open. But again, no words came. Only a noise from deep in the chest, somewhere between anger and collapse. Alana walked forward slowly. The sound of her shoes on the marble echoed sharper than his yelling ever had. She stopped just feet away from the shards. And then, she bent down, picked up a single piece, a sliver of glass with the Delphia logo still visible, stood up, and said, "You broke the device." She met his eyes. "But you didn't break the proof." Agent Cortez gestured to Farley. "Get the building report, full footage, time-stamped. We'll deliver to Delphia Legal and our own division." He looked to Alana. "You want him detained now?" Alana didn't answer immediately. She looked at Marcus one last time. Not with hate, not even with pity, but with finality, then turned to the agents. "Not yet. Let him walk through this building one last time. Let him feel what it means to be seen for who he really is." Cortez nodded. "You sure?" She nodded back. "I'm very sure." Marcus lowered his head. He took one step, then another, and as he walked through the lobby, it wasn't silence that greeted him. It was absence. No eye contact. No respect. No resque. Just the cold, sharp awareness that the room he once controlled no longer believed in him. The young black woman near the loan desks whispered, "They always say we're the threat, but they're the ones who lose control." Someone responded, because control was never theirs. It was borrowed, and today she reclaimed it. Marcus was gone, escorted, not arrested yet. Each step echoing the sound of a man leaving behind the illusion of power he once wore like armor. But Alana? She hadn't moved. Not to leave. not to explain, because her work wasn't done. Not yet. She reached into her bag and pulled out a sleek, black phone. Not her personal device. This one had no logos, no fingerprints, no case. Just a steel dial and a single button. She pressed it once. A soft pulse flickered. No sound, no alert, just activation. Across the lobby, Jalen saw the glow. He didn't understand it, but something in his gut told him this moment wasn't for show. This was strategy. Alana turned and approached Agent Cortez. "I'd like you to stay another 15 minutes, she said quietly. Cortez raised an eyebrow. "Expecting something?" She nodded, then added, almost like a whisper, "Protocol Sigma is layered. What you saw earlier was only phase 1. Cortez exchanged a glance with Farley, who adjusted his earpiece. "Understood, we'll stay on site." Then he leaned in. "Should we be expecting resistance?" Alana didn't blink. "You should be expecting clarity." Back at the branch manager's office, Reed, nervous and red-faced, picked up the landline, trying to call regional headquarters, but the line beeped. Disconnected. Then his screen went black. Not just his every desk terminal flickered off. Teller screens, audit logs, internal comms, all replaced by the same image. Delphia compliance lockdown. Level 7 audit triggered. Do not attempt bypass. Staff froze. Phones rang, but no one answered. The assistant manager stepped into the hallway. The system just went dark. Tiffany stood near the counter, eyes wide. "What is this?" Alana turned to her. "It's what happens when internal culture violates federal partnership terms. The bank's integration with Delphia has been placed under review. Every keystroke made since 10:04 a.m. is now being mirrored to our national compliance server." Tiffany stammered. You can't do that." Alana walked toward her. "No aggression. Just certainty. You think partnerships are signed with a pen? They're not." She stepped closer. "They're signed with trust." Another step. "And you defaulted." The front doors of the bank opened. 2 people entered. Not FBI. Not security. They wore Navy suits. No name tags. One carried a slim steel briefcase. "Delphia Systems Audit Division," one said. "Where's the server room?" No one answered. Alana pointed. "Behind the HR hallway. Take a left. It's the one with biometric lock code 88R. They nodded and disappeared. Now Reed stepped forward. "What does this mean for the bank?" Alana turned to him. "It means your next 3 quarters just froze. Your public audit will include today's footage. And your pending contract with us?" She paused. "Terminated," Jalen whispered, almost to himself. She didn't need a lawsuit. She became the consequence. A woman beside him nodded. "Now that's power." Alana reached again for the small black phone, held it up, and this time spoke into it. "Send confirmation to General Counsel. Notify Board Level C." Then she paused, looked directly at the nearest camera, and log full internal breach under Equity Violation Code 47B. Outside, clouds began to form, but inside that bank, it was already storming. The lobby had quieted again, not from fear, from realization, because what they were witnessing wasn't a confrontation anymore. It was a transition, from ignorance to truth, from doubt to clarity. And standing in the middle of it all was a woman who had said almost nothing, yet had shifted everything. Alana turned back toward the center of the room. No spotlight, no mic, just her voice. Low, precise, measured like a verdict. "My name is Alana Miles. I was born in Shreveport, Louisiana. My mother worked the night shift in a hospital laundry room for 18 years. My father drove city buses until he slipped a disc and never got surgery because he didn't have coverage." She looked around the room. "I built my first financial app in a public library at 19. My first patent was rejected because they said it was too ambitious. I kept coding." Her voice didn't crack, it cut. "At 24, I founded Delphia Group out of a basement I rented for $70 a week. Today, we run over $8 billion in real-time compliance processing annually for nearly 700 financial institutions." Gasps, not dramatic, but undeniable. Even Tiffany took a full step back. Reed opened his mouth, then closed it. "Jalen?" He stared like a man watching history narrate itself. "I didn't come here to impress anyone," Alana continued. "I came to test your systems, your people, your bias. She turned toward the destroyed tablet. And I got my answers. A voice from the client area. You said we. Who's we? Alana met the question with grace. We as Delphia's internal audit team. We as the board that gave me full legal authority to override contracts in breach of equity compliance. And we as every founder, every black executive, every woman who walks into a room built to doubt her and stays anyway. A pause, then one last sentence. And in case it wasn't clear, I own 62% of this building. It landed like a drumbeat. Every head turned. Even Agent Cortez raised his eyebrows. You own it? Reed asked. She nodded once. Through a holding company acquired last year during the zoning expansion, we leased 10 of the 26 floors. The rest belongs to an investment trust under Delphia. Another silence. But this one, it revered her. Not just for power, but for preparation. Tiffany muttered under her breath. So you were always in control. Alana glanced at her. Number I was always in position. That's different. Phones kept recording. But no one dared interrupt. Because for once, the room wasn't witnessing a twist. It was witnessing truth long ignored. She continued. Marcus thought this was his branch. That's why he spoke to me like a criminal. Like I didn't belong. Like authority was his by default. She looked at the clients. But authority doesn't come from volume. It comes from vision. Then at the staff. It doesn't sit in a chair. It sits in action. Then at the camera because she knew this would be watched. And it doesn't protect itself by tearing others down. It rises when you do. One final moment. Jalen stepped forward, voice unsure but brave. Ms. Miles, I'm sorry. She looked at him, really looked. Not as a villain, not even as a disappointment. Just a student. And said, don't apologize. Just recognize. Then never stay quiet again. A woman near the front wiped her eyes. Not because she was sad, because she was seen. Alana stood still. The lobby was hushed now, not by fear, but by reverence. She'd laid bare her identity, her authority, her ownership, but what she hadn't yet shared was why it all mattered. And she knew, power means nothing unless it's rooted in memory. So she began. I used to think, she said softly, that if I dressed right, if I spoke perfectly, if I entered quietly enough, the world would treat me fairly. She looked down at her hands, then back up. I was wrong. The crowd didn't move. No one whispered. Not even the espresso machine dared interrupt her now. When I started Delphia, I was 24. Every meeting I pitched, they asked me who my technical lead was. I was the technical lead. She smiled slightly. Not out of joy, out of endurance. One investor told me, to my face, black founders tend to overpromise. Another said, we just funded a black woman last quarter. We're trying to stay balanced. Someone near the front gasped. Alana just kept going. I've been asked to bring a white co-signer to client meetings. I've had elevator buttons ignored. Security guards called. My badge questioned. My name mispronounced even after I corrected it. Twice. She paused. I've sat through entire presentations where my male assistant was addressed as the decision maker. I've had my own code rewritten and sent back to me for review. Her voice stayed calm. But the pain beneath it echoed. I've built systems that protect banks, and been mistaken for the intern. I've closed deals worth millions, and been asked if I was lost. She turned toward the clients, toward the staff, toward the young girl still filming from her phone. I've learned something important, she said. You don't fight bias with shouting. You fight it with stillness, with records, with ownership. You let them build the fire, and then you let the truth walk in without blinking. Jalen nodded slowly. Not as an employee. As a witness, a woman near the back whispered, she's carried this for years. And another said, and still walked in here smiling. Alana took a breath. Not a dramatic one. A real one. Like exhaling the weight of every room she'd ever had to earn her way into. I didn't come here for revenge, she said. I came to see if the world had changed. She looked around. And it has. But not enough. Then she looked to Jalen. But it will if people like you speak up sooner. She looked to the girl with the phone. It will if the next generation records truth, not just spectacle. And finally, she looked to the shattered remains of her tablet. It will if power stops needing to prove itself, and starts demanding better systems altogether. Cortez stood silently in the back. No longer a federal agent. Just another man, respecting something far greater than jurisdiction. Alana stepped forward once more. Then, almost quietly, "I didn't build Delphia just to process data." She turned, facing the heart of the room. "I built it to prove that silence is not safety, that dignity is not optional, and that black brilliance is not a surprise." The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It was full of the weight of everything she'd endured, and everything she'd overcome. Not by shouting, not by begging, but by showing up and staying standing. She didn't wait for applause, didn't wait for permission, didn't wait for anyone to hand her the respect she already owned. Alana turned toward the exit, each step deliberate, each footfall quiet, yet it thundered through the lobby like justice itself was taking a breath. Jalen stood up fully now, as if compelled by gravity. He didn't speak, but his eyes said everything. "I saw you. I learned. You won't forget." At the back, the teenage girl lowered her phone, not to stop filming but because she couldn't look away. Her mother placed a hand on her shoulder, whispering, "Remember how she walked out?" The girl nodded. "I will." Tiffany, still frozen, but this time, not in defensiveness and reflection. She wasn't the villain, but she'd watched one act unchecked. And that silence? It had a cost. Agent Cortez stepped to the side, allowing Alana to pass. Not because protocol required it, because respect demanded it. As she passed, he simply said, "We'll handle the rest." Alana nodded. Soft, but with finality. Outside, the sky had shifted thick clouds, wind rising. But she didn't shield herself. She let the wind hit her full on. Chin up, eyes forward. Because this wasn't a storm to hide from. This was a storm she walked through. Back inside, Farley whispered to Cortez, "You ever seen anything like that?" Cortez didn't answer at first. Then simply, "Number. But I'll be telling this story for the rest of my career." As Alana stepped through the revolving doors, her phone buzzed once. A message from General Counsel. All 3 board members watched the footage. Unanimous vote. Termination confirmed. Full rights returned. She didn't smile, just tucked the phone away. Because this moment didn't belong to corporate policy. It belonged to dignity. The security guard who hadn't spoken all day stepped forward as the door closed. He looked at Tiffany, then the others, and said what everyone else was thinking. She didn't raise her voice once, and still shook the whole place. Outside, Alana reached the curb. A sleek black car waited. The driver stepped out, held the door. She paused for a moment before entering. Looked back at the glass tower she partly owned, the one that tried to reject her. Then quietly, documented, corrected, elevated. She got in, the door closed, and just like that, she left. But the story? It stayed. In every screen still recording. Every whisper turned conviction. Every young girl watching, not just in awe but in preparation. Because Alana Miles didn't just walk out of a bank that doubted her. She walked out as a blueprint. By the time Alana's car turned the corner, the footage had already crossed 3 time zones. It started with a 19-second clip from the teenager's phone. Marcus slamming the tablet. Alana standing still. The words, "I own 62% of this building." Posted at 12:03 p.m. 6 million views by 1 o'clock. Number justice in stillness. Number black CEO. Number she did not blink. Number 6.2%. The hashtag spread like wildfire but not as outrage. As reclamation. TikTok. Stitched. IG captioned in bold. LinkedIn flooded with think pieces, praise, apologies, and the phrase, "Let's reimagine leadership." But the most shared clip? Alana's final words to the room. Authority doesn't come from volume. It comes from vision. Pinned, shared, quoted in pitch decks. Even turned into a mural overnight in Harlem. Back at Southport Federal, a PR email dropped by 3:17 p.m. "We are investigating the incident that occurred this morning involving a misunderstanding with a valued guest. We are committed to equity, growth, and inclusivity." But the comments were brutal. Misunderstanding? She built your systems. Fire Marcus or be the next collapse. By 6 p.m., Delphia Group released a single-line statement. Compliance breach documented. Contract dissolved. Building remains under Delphia Holdings. No hashtags. No emotion. Just consequence. The teenage girl who filmed it? CNN requested an interview. She declined, but she did post one thing to her story. A screenshot of Alana mid-sentence, still and strong, with the caption, "She didn't yell, she didn't beg, she just showed us how it's done." Jalen? He requested a formal reassignment, then wrote a 400-word internal email titled, "What Silence Costs." It circulated to every regional branch, and for once, didn't get ignored. Marcus? Placed on leave, pending investigation. But more than that, his face became a cautionary tale. Not for being cruel, but for being confident in bias. And Alana? She never posted, never tweeted, never gave a statement, because she didn't need to. Her walk did the talking. Her stillness screamed louder than outrage ever could. And weeks later, when asked by a board member during a quarterly briefing why she didn't press charges, she replied with the simplest truth. This wasn't about punishment. It was about clarity. Because the world didn't need another story of injustice. It needed a blueprint for how to dismantle it silently, structurally, permanently. And Alana Miles gave them one. Before you scroll, drop your city or country in the comments. Tag someone who walks with dignity no matter the room. And if you believe calm is stronger than chaos, hit like, share, and carry this story forward. Because somewhere, right now, another woman is walking into a room that wasn't built for her. Let's make sure she never walks alone.